I'm excited because I wasn't able to. Well, I joined long enough yesterday to throw my hands up in the air, and then they booted me out. I guess that's what happened. Now my internet connection sucks, but I'm super happy that I actually get to listen to the best intro of all time today.
Oh yeah, there's that intro thing. I seriously I'm kind of leaning back towards cringe, but then it's just so much fun. Anyway, Chris, I'm excited to have you here, man. Just buckle up. This is the most amazing intro that has ever existed ever.
I've seen it. I know it's the best intro ever. So sometimes I'll just tune in on a Tuesday just for the intro. And then
just to da, 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 da.
Welcome to Tech Talk on a Tuesday, where Corey and Jimmy talk to smart people about tech that is way above their head, but intensely informative, super fun. Sooner or later, somebody's going to make an inappropriate joke. We're definitely going to give away a bunch of NFTs. And quite frankly, we're just going to learn a whole ton. If you have any ideas about who we should have on Tech Talk on a Tuesday, please let us know by adding us in the comments or just finding us. Just stalk us down. It's fine. Just talk to us. Tech Talk on a Tuesday.
So I'd like to start today with a story.
Oh my!
It's a very short story. But I used to work at a factory when I was younger. Well, it's funny because I used to work in a factory and work at a department store and be a full-time high school student. I didn't sleep very much. I was one hell of a
dedicated,
right? Grinder, even back in the day,
right? Well, there was a period where I wasn't a grinder. But anyway, that factory job, I worked all night and I worked making filters. And there was these giant presses that used to ka-choon, 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 press metal for 8 hours a shift. I would hear that all day. And sometimes I'd wake up from my sleep, and I would hear in the back of my head, da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. It took months for that to go away. So here's where this story ties in, because last week we put together a little presentation for the Waxapalooza thing. And I was trying to get the order of the videos right, and I was watching this back. And one of the videos that I recorded was a really old one, but a good one, by Corey, where he basically walks around the volcano from the cathedral and kind of walks up the volcano and then flies around it. And it's to that song, to that Burn It Down song. And then every single time that Burn It Down song came on, because it starts in almost the exact same place, because it starts at the beginning of the song, it would get to 3 or 4 seconds in, and then in the back of my head, I would hear your voice. Welcome to Tech Talk on a Tuesday. It wasn't there, but I would hear it. It was awesome. And I was just like, what, why isn't it playing like it should be there? So yeah, that's my story.
That's funny.
You wrote that whole song? That's all your work, Corey?
So I think that's one of the ones where I used a Yoshi bed track, and then it was basically just some kind of core music, and then basically duct tape a bunch of guitar and vocals to it and stuff.
Awesome.
But yeah, and then of course I send in sketch stuff, and Yoshi and M-Blue pretty it up so that it actually sounds like somebody who knows what they're doing made it. So yeah.
So that's all you.
That's yes.
Excellent.
It's weird when you put it that way, but because that's actually how I describe it. It's my old job was and they paid me. It was weird.
No way.
Not as weird as making $2,000 a month on Egg Chain, but I was just a musician for a long time, but just doing gigs and shit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could tell with this silky smooth voice.
Yeah, it's smooth and shit.
It's perfect for radio. I mean, really, you found your calling here.
Yeah, that's Greg's fault, man. Greg got me into heavily into podcasting. I was messing around with it for a long time, and I noticed after, because we did podcasts for many years together, and he actually has a radio voice. It's ridiculous especially when he can like flip the switch and turn like the real radio voice on, and it's like too good. It's like, no, you have to stop making those noises with your face because I know you and now it's weird, right? So like
that's awesome.
But I think like just talking with him for as long as I did, because we used to do shows every day like Jimmy and I do now. So I think it sort of modified it a little bit, which is weird. Now just hanging out with Jimmy all the time means that I'm gonna end up being, after 5 years, the most verbosity ridden million word run-on sentence guy ever. That meme, like I almost want to read that meme again. I don't know if you saw this, Chris. One of the last shows we did, they started making memes about Jimmy, which I don't know why we weren't always doing that. They're all fucking fantastic, like really, awesome. Really funny. And I make jokes about him using too many words all the time, and then he should just write how he speaks. And so somebody made a meme that's just verbatim what he said over the space of about 60 seconds. And it's pure insanity. Like I literally almost died laughing. It was so funny. Anyway,
that's awesome.
It was pretty good.
I'll go back and find that. That sounds good.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
We have our good friend Bulge.
Right. Good morning, Hetty Eddie and TC, of course. Yep. So yeah, Chris, we haven't talked in like 5 or 10 minutes. This it's like 10 years in crypto time.
Lots have happened. Yep, things are going on.
Right. So here's a question. Is Bullish actually going to use EOS, or are they gonna eschew it again the same way that they did for Voice?
All that's been committed, I think, that we know of, is they'll hash to the main chain, basically. So they'll just hash a header.
What do you mean hash to the main chain?
They'll send a header, like basically like a hexadecimal, whatever. I guess I'm not. I mean, Tech Talk.
No. Hey, you already know more than me. So,
but they're just going to send. It'll be like a verifiability of what's going on their private EOS chain. They'll send just as. I don't know how frequent those transactions will take place, but they'll send transactions to EOS that will then become like stamps of the state, I think, of their internal private EOS IO chain.
Okay, so they'll basically
uses EOS.
It's like not a settlement layer, but as like a recorder in chief of their ledger. So they could do that like once a month. So they need to what you're saying is like, and maybe it's more than that.
Hopefully much more than that. Yeah.
So they need to stake about 5 EOS. So Bullish will eat up. I just wanted to kind of get a beat on this. So Bullish, that all the EOS community, who I love you guys, are so excited about, they're gonna need about 5 EOS total staked to manage their resource load for Bullish. Is basically what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think I've seen numbers big. It's more like 2,000 or something.
Wow. Like I'll send it to them. I got them. We're good.
It's not. I think. I mean, it's a symbolic usage of EOS, and there'll be liquidity pairs on Bullish.
Well, and that's really liquidity pairs that are incentivized. If they do that the right way, then that'll
help the price, right?
That'll be really amazing.
You're gonna lock up EOS tokens, and then they'll also they did do, like, Block One did a $7.5 million investment into Shintai, and they have the Checks token.
Oh, cool.
So that hopefully, maybe, because Checks isn't really listed on any big exchange. So if Bullish can become a gateway to some smaller cap EOS IO EOS based tokens, that would be good. We don't know. This is all now. I'm into the hopium speculation realm, but we can hope that might happen.
I like hopium too.
And
I like incentivized LP is like, I am deeply fascinated with that. Like, I've been ranting about it since I started yelling at Alcor to do it, and they never did. So we're actually building it ourselves. Like, we're going to be doing our own liquidity pool. Only, I guess the difference is we're actually going to be locking up a shit ton of wax, as opposed to just raising $4 billion and then not having anything to do with our token ever again.
I mean, there's plenty of things to be critical. There's no doubt. But this is why
honestly, I'm kind of being a dick, which I just want to apologize for.
It's fair. Like, what you're saying it's not unreasonable, right? But this is where I think those who are still in the EOS ecosystem and believe in it recognize that things didn't go as planned. Things were promised and not delivered upon. Okay, but EOS is far from dead. There's lots going on. The EOS Foundation, Eden on EOS, like, there's still projects being built. It's still not a $0 coin. Like I saw a tweet
for
from
sure.
2-Bit Crypto or something, and they're like, convinced me that EOS isn't done yet or something. And it's like,
With that,
it's
I
not
agree.
worth zero.
Not
Like, so it's not
zero.
done.
As an
I mean,
argument,
what-
like
how much more?
I got
convincing
asked to, like, apparently Cardano is actually launching now, and somebody who's like got a decent business mind but really likes to go where all the hype is in crypto was like, hey, maybe we should like move all of our stuff over there. I'm like, fuck no. You know why? They have nothing going on. Like they literally nothing. Like, oh, they're gonna launch smart contracts soon. Ethereum launched smart contracts like 5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Wax has been doing it since like 18 million years ago, and so is like, if you want smart contracts, you can go anywhere, right? Cardano is pure hype until somebody proves to me that it's not, which is possible. It's absolutely hype. It's as high as it's ever going to go unless they ramp the hype up more, right? Because I mean, like Hypium, there is an unlimited supply. Just go see Doge, right? So like that, all that stuff's possible, but there's no way I would ever go there. So in comparison, EOS has a fuck ton going on compared to Cardano. Like, just obviously, right?
Objectively, you can say that. It's not even an argument, and hype wins the day. That's, I mean, human psychology is
it wins
animals.
the day in these bull markets. Watch what happens in the winter.
Well, exactly, and even once Cardano actually come and they pass the hype stage to what actually is there, and it's like, oh, this isn't taking over the world like we all thought, because that's what a lot of us thought about EOS. Oh, it's gonna million transactions a second. It's gonna, and so hype. Yeah. Actual delivery, it's still great. It's still the best tech out there, but now it's not exactly, and it's not instantaneous. And the money will go to the next hype chain, or maybe it'll settle on actual value, just like the early internet boom when there was a lot of hype, and eventually true technology.
It's going to go to where the actual. Yeah. Thank you for saying it that way, because it's going to go to where this is my personal belief, but I think history bears this out in every other technology that's come online. It's going to go to where the network effect of people is. Yep. Right. So that's right. Like
Metcalfe's law.
Right. Like I want to design everything that we're building long term over, the number of people that are interacting and connecting in that space, however they're doing it, whether it's Uplift or Pludak or whatever it is. Right. Yep. And I think, EOS still has that as an asset. There are still projects that are building there in good faith, like DeFi Box has some volume. Well, I'd love to check what their volume is compared to Alcor now, because I bet it's not.
It's not great. The other interesting thing too is like all these like Wax and Telos and all these EOS.io based chains, they don't necessarily, they don't have to become these separate islands that don't communicate. There is going to be, I think, in the future, that they'll all end up becoming, they could be friends. Like there's no reason why we can't all just kind of get along, and
it's almost like I completely agree. And there's bridges coming out now, right? Which is great. And they're like Atari level. They're sort of the initial level bridges, fine. But I think like these this software I think can talk to each other really easily.
Right.
But I think where it comes down to is that, one, might become the settlement layer for another, or one can consider itself L2 for this or L2 for that, or whatever it is. But I wonder if these chains on a gestalt level aren't going to start acting like DeFi pools, right? Like you might end up seeing a ton of activity on Wax that gets it to the point where, suddenly it makes sense to be shunting network traffic to EOS mainnet or to, Proton down the road or whatever, right? And like it's just going to get more dynamic as we go.
Exactly. And it's almost like the Bitcoin maximalist who says, Bitcoin is all we need. That is it.
Yeah.
Bitcoin does everything. And it's like, the human utility, the utility of crypto and blockchain is beyond we don't even understand yet how we can use it. Just like any new technology, it has to evolve, it has to emerge. So there's going to be different use cases that are going to eventually gravitate to the best chain to manifest that use case, right? So they can all work together. And like you say, EOS.io is going to be, it's easier to hopefully communicate across EOS.io chains than it's going to be to go from an EOS.io to EV, like to Ethereum or to Cardano, whatever the hell their thing's called. So I think it could easily work out long term that all of these chains help each other and just pick a particular use case that's kind of needed, right?
Well, and the end user at the end of the day, like 5 years from now, you're going to not have any clue, maybe 10. You're not going to have any clue what chain you're on. You're not going to care. Jimmy.
Yeah.
No, I that's essentially what I was going to say. Like, I think we're headed to a place where it's kind of like, sometimes when I walk into like a supermarket and I put my credit card in the thing, I don't even have to punch in my number. And it's like, I usually forget to take my credit card, and I'm lucky I live in in Japan because somebody chases me down and gives it to me. But like, we're gonna get to that point where you don't even know that you're using things on the blockchain. I think that's really important. And then I wanted to like say another thing as well, like, you know, on the back of Corey being a dick.
Thanks.
No.
Nice
But
sounding dick, at
I
least.
think Sean,
Right?
our good friend Sean over at Crypto Writer, he wrote this really interesting article entitled, you know, A New Dawn, where he talks about Eves and the EOS Foundation, and like basically, you know, putting the numbers in touch with reality. And he basically said that this is maybe EOS's second coming and second chance to be able to have people actually doing stuff on the back end, as opposed to like what Block One's doing with Bullish or what they did with Voice and these types of things. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know that Chris did a stream with Zach Gull a couple weeks ago. So I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on that and like how that compares to what you guys were talking about with Bullish, in terms of, you know, Bullish being at the helm under like Block One, or like is this community initiative like much better? Because that in comparison to in combination with EOS Starter, in combination with Eden on EOS, all of these community projects seems to me to be more something to look forward to, and less, you know, speculation on something that has never materialized, in my opinion. But anyway, I think it's time for gratitudes, and that means I need to be quiet. So let's do that.
Yeah, I'm grateful for Eden EOS and Chris Barnes this morning. Freaking, I'm a huge fan. So what are you grateful for this morning?
I'm grateful for good people, which applies to both of you guys, because it's the good people give me hope. And there's a lot of shitty people, but as long as there's still some good people left, we got a chance. So I'm grateful for good people.
Preach. As usual, guys, if you're in the comments and you want a gratitude thrown up, let me know and I'll throw a few up. Jimmy.
I'm grateful for internet that works.
Nice.
That's so true. It's the most frustrating thing ever, eh? When you're used to have good internet and then you go to somewhere where it's not, and it's like going back to dial-up. You just hear that sound in the back of your mind, and the modem doing its thing, right?
This shit's pre-dial-up, and like it was working so bad yesterday that like it sounded like I was trying to dial up because I heard like every like 18th syllable that anyone on the stream said. It was brutal.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's like, it's amazing how quickly we've gone from like, oh, we live in the future, this is all fucking magic, to why doesn't my meme machine work?
So I want to respond to kind of what you said there, Jimmy, about the EOS Foundation and just this whole thing. So to me, this is like maybe a sensitive thing to say, but I think that the EOS community has to just let go of any hopes and dreams and wishes that they had for Block One. Just get over it. Like, it's hard. It's like,
but it's like the alternative is wasting your goddamn time for another millisecond, right? Chris, you're absolutely right. There's no use. As much as like I'm gonna not do that because it's too funny to constantly needle it, which makes me a shithead, and I get that. But you're completely totally right, and you know, it makes me a terrible person.
Well, it's not that, because those are, but it's okay to I mean, that's fair, right? It's fair. But the point is for those who are like, because this has been the EOS's problem, I think, this whole time now, since the mainnet launch, is we've been sort of waiting bated breath for what is Block One going to do next? What are they've got this big war chest, and part of the narrative why a lot of us bought into EOS was because of this idea of this war chest, and they're going to reinvest into the ecosystem, and no other chain really had that type of commitment, quote unquote. And it turns out that's not how it's working out. They've been handcuffed by, I think personally, a lot of lawyers, a lot of banker dudes have gotten into that organization, and they have ground it to a halt, and they're doing exactly what you would expect a typical corporation to do. Good or bad, that's what's happening.
It's all about risk aversion. I completely and totally agree. So
here's the good news part of this story is that they still have a lot of money. They're still building products. So EOS is still a blockchain, a public blockchain that Block One can still use. So all the people who are like, let's fork out their coins, let's sue them, all of that is like, you're just, if you can just accept that they've taken some money and didn't do what they thought they were going to do and just let that go, And then now the next step is, what can we still do? What can we do within EOS? What can the EOS ecosystem do for itself? Create a thriving ecosystem that Block One could still build on and add value. So it's not like we need to throw them away. Let's just not be dickheads to them so aggressively. Not, Corey, you can do it all you want, but generally,
I get an exception to that rule.
I mean, but generally we should at least try to like just move forward, accept what we can't control, and control what we can, and make changes to affect what we can change. And the EOS Foundation is exactly that. That is the EOS community, the EOS block producers, the whales taking control of the chain. Let's release some funding, put it to work for ourselves, for our own ecosystem. And then Block One is happy. They can still build on it. They still have a lot of tokens that can affect like BP selection due to like how they want to vote. Yeah. But we just don't have to, we shouldn't rely on them anymore. And we just need to take control and do it for ourselves.
Yeah, no, you're completely and totally right. And, an argument could probably be made that being forced into the constraints of the community doing it itself will have a really good chance of making it actually better. Yeah. Right. I mean, if people, I am, I'm grateful for 88. I will put that on the chain, but it's under duress. Just want to throw that out there, only because I love you, buddy. Yeah, that's good. So tell us more about the EOS Foundation. Like we saw the headlines that that Eve LaRose was throwing that up. What's the intention? What kind of details can you give us?
So right now it is kind of light on details. The two kind of core pieces of information that we have were a blog post from Eve followed by a blog post from Dan. And so Eve basically announced what he's been working on, which is trying to form this EOS Foundation. And Dan then followed it up. And so in that post, there wasn't a ton of detail. Like it didn't really, there was no, kind of generally speaking about it would fund infrastructure and grants and support ecosystem growth. But not, we're going to give money to this and we're going to do it this way. And these are the people and this is how it's going to work. Like there's a lot, it was very high level, which is fine, right? That's like the kickoff, the opener. And then Dan's reply to that essentially was that he is supportive. He recognizes the importance of a strong entrepreneur to lead, to be somewhat centralized, to get things done. Dan did throw the caveat that he would support this so long as the foundation promotes Eden on EOS, or at least encourages the development of Eden on EOS, because Eden on EOS still requires funding. That's still the sort of elusive to be determined piece to make that work. And for those who don't know, Eden on EOS is just it's a process that came out of Dan's book, More Equal Animals, that is a new way to form consensus amongst a group of people. And so it's being used or trialed essentially on EOS in this group called Eden on EOS, where members do elections. And at the end, as you work your way up this sort of political playoff type of system, you get to the end and those who get voted receive funding from should be community funding. So in this case, it could be what hopefully happens is the EOS Foundation they're asking for a 2% increase in inflation so the block producers currently are sitting on an MSIG to turn that inflation on. And then they will the foundation will direct that funding to the different grants and programs and hopefully Eden on EOS. And then Eden on EOS could use that funding for its elections. But
it won't be exclusively Eden on EOS though.
No.
This is going to open the pathways and the doors for a lot of projects that might be bitter about not getting proper EOS funding from Block One back in the day, which I think is really exciting because that was always one of my biggest issues. Actually, was the fact that they didn't really direct that funding properly, in my opinion.
Yeah, EOS VC let us down. This is basically to do a better job of what we thought EOS VC was going to do. But and more. Oh, we lost Corey. He's in stream audio only. Interesting. So they're going to do more than just that though, because they're going to also infrastructure, and they're using. It looks like Eve did put out another response in Telegram. I think it was yesterday, basically talking about the next article. So he's collected a bunch of questions from the community, and he's going to then respond, and he's got a list of 30 things practically here. How will the funds be used? Who is on the council? How's the council determined? Who's the found? So it looks like there's a council and a foundation. There's sort of two entities that are being formed, and he's going to explain how they relate to each other, who the flow of funds are going to work, the transparency of funds, periodical reports. Like, so anyway, he's put this great, which is excellent to see. So he's working on this very comprehensive response, answering a lot of the questions that have been raised. And like you say, part of what he's got here too is it's a consensus style, which is what Ethereum has, consensus, and that funded MetaMask, Diligence, Truffle, and Infura. So that's all sort of basically the foundation is going to help promote and pay for applications on EOS that can allow developers to develop more seamlessly and efficiently, which is what has helped Ethereum get to where it has. So that's really good to see. There's a lot of stuff that'll come out of this.
Yeah, and Eve is really thorough as well. Like, I mean, he's really good at, looking at figuring out what questions, what answers to questions people need and doing that. And like, I know firsthand through some of the projects that I'm affiliated with, associated with, like, he's been doing a really good job of like informing the block producers. All that information hasn't come out to the community quite yet. But as you say, like, the multi-sig is in the works. And I think this is, kind of a second coming in a way, and a way for like projects to get funding. Like, and any project can do it. I mean, potentially, if we as the Uplift wanted to, reach out and document a proposal on how we kind of feel that like funding from this foundation would help ourselves or the EOS ecosystem overall, like we could potentially do that, which is what I like about it, because it actually reminds me a lot of how the original worker proposal system on Wax was structured, whereby you had this organization of a community where funds were kind of allocated towards that, and then people could go through this process of gaining the funds. So
that's one of the things he's answered. One of the questions he'll answer is how do teams receive grants? But then also there's Pomelo, right? So Pomelo is coming out, and so like, Eve is certainly the perfect guy to sort of play this leader role in the foundation, because he knows exactly how Pomelo is going to work. The EOS Nation was building that with EOS Asia, so he's going to have intimate knowledge of how that works, and the foundation can support Pomelo, and that'll be another way that people can, groups can support other projects being built, and it uses the quadratic funding that Gitcoin uses on Ethereum. So that'll be excellent for development. EOS Starter's coming. It's still early stage, but it'll eventually promote, incubate, launch different projects, and certainly the foundation can probably support EOS Starter. Then there's Eden, which again, the foundation can direct some funding to Eden, and it will support growth in different projects on the EOS, in the EOS ecosystem, because that's what it's targeted for. So there's going to be a lot of ways, like in terms of this whole EOS is dead narrative, there's so much that is just around the corner now that is all deliberately and specifically being built to help projects and developers and teams get going to build stuff to help EOS grow. Like none of these things have existed up till now, and EOS is still here. So imagine what we can do with the sort of three-pronged Pomelo, the foundation, EOS Starter, Eden on EOS, all working together to then push stuff onto EOS. Like, a lot can happen quickly.
And I mean, leave Block One on the list as well, because one of the things that they are doing a really good job at, it might be the only thing, but one of the things that they're doing a really good job at is like keeping that code pumping, right? Like they keep updating it. They keep, another thing that I would commend them on, we're not really seeing an effect, but like they do keep running discounted training programs to teach people how to code with EOS.io, and that I like, because it actually helps people who are coming into Wax, or who are going to Ultra or Telos or any of these other chains as well. So I mean, I have issues with Block One because of what they've done with. If they would have just did shit instead of promising to do shit that they didn't, I probably wouldn't have a problem with it. That's all I'm saying. That point though will always be there. And you'll never be wrong by saying it. I mean, it bothers me. I mean, I'm working. I'm spending a lot of time working on Eden and working to promote and grow EOS. But I don't disagree with you. Like, it pisses me off too. I mean, as a percent of bother, like on a sliding scale from 0% to like 100%, like what percentile are you at before you just say fuck it, get rid of that EOS sign in the top corner and flip over to Cardano?
Yeah, I don't know. So because part of it for me too is I got gravitated to Dan's mission. So like half of it's not just filling my bags and not just what the coins worth the most, but it was Dan's sort of principles of securing life, liberty, property, freedom for all, and that's a philosophical reason to want to participate in this ecosystem. That I don't see that I don't hear Charles Hoskinson talking about that bullshit. Like, not that it's bullshit, but he doesn't go that route.
You fielded that very well. Hats off. I'm just going to be quiet now because that was like...
But and then so Eden's the next thing, right? There's no other blockchain that has something like Eden, which is a new way to do democracy. Like, so personally for me, I won't be jumping ship anytime soon because I want Eden to become a thing. And right now it's being tested on Eden. If Eden was if the foundation said, sorry, nothing's happening for Eden on EOS. Yeah, we're not giving you any money, and it just dissolved, and it didn't. And who with me wants to start this somewhere else? Who wants to promote this? That's fine. That's a conversation that could happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the foundation Eve is on Eden. I think he does get it, so it is going to be supported and encouraged to grow. And to me, that's more compelling than any other blockchain.
So there's one other thing I actually want to talk about, or I want you to talk about, if that's okay. Because to bring this back full circle, what you were talking about was like other blockchains. And then you're talking about Dan, who, I don't feel this way, but Dan has a reputation, from the Dan haters out there of moving through projects very quickly and like kind of leaving them behind and in the dust. And he's said multiple times that he's not really... I think he said in that secondary blog post with Eve is like basically Eve's like the perfect person to be able to run this foundation. Him, not so much, because he's more of like a networker. He's not necessarily a leader. And that acknowledges this. He acknowledges that that's not his strong point. He acknowledges that he's more of like a philosopher as opposed to a politician, which I think is all interesting. But one of the things that Eden on EOS is starting to incorporate is Clarion. And if you don't know what Clarion is, Clarion comes from back in the BitShares days, which was basically Dan's kind of first early foray into DeFi. And if you look at like all the things that he was trying to do with BitShares and DeFi, there were some really interesting things that I actually believe were like ahead of his time. And now I know you're very close with the Clarion team and how that's kind of incorporating into Eden on EOS. And I'm wondering if you could maybe give us a rundown on that as well.
Yeah. So like Clarion is going to be a communication app or protocol of sorts. So it's not a blockchain. It doesn't have a token. So it's not like that at all. It's going to be a method it's another social media communication app that doesn't rely on any central set of servers. It's something that runs on individuals' computers, more like kind of like a BitTorrent would. So it'll be very hard to take down. It'll allow for open communication without censorship and without sort of having your feed augmented like we hear probably happens on a lot of the modern Twitter, Facebook, all those ones, right? So that's essentially what Clarion is going to be in a nutshell. So he's funding a team to build that application. But that same team is also currently building the Eden EOS. So it's like the software, the smart contracts that are going to run the Eden on EOS network, essentially. And it's to do with the funding, how funding distribution works. The voting itself is being done through the web app that they're making, and it's through your EOS account. And so when you're an Eden member, you have an EOS account tied to that, you log into the web app, and then right there you're going to be able to vote for in your rooms. Like all the elections is going to be all done. And Jimmy, you participated in an election, you saw how kind of rough it was when it's being done manually. All that is going to be resolved in the new version. So this team
I was really nice on how rough it was, honestly. and I was pretty critical, but I do see the potential in having this automated. It needs to be automated. I think that's the right. Beauty and the power of Eden is to be able to re-engage that human element. Like a lot of blockchain takes that human element away, and we need that. I know Corey's like right now, like he's really focused on the metaverse and making sure that we have that human element in the metaverse, no matter what it takes. Like rule number one is to get that human interaction, because the whole point of this metaverse is to be in there and interacting with people. And I think when it comes to like certain things with governance and things like that, you know, we're going to need that, right? Like we the first step to being owned by robots is to let robots rule, right? Like we really need to get to a point where if we're going to put everything on blockchain, we need to keep connection to some of those humanized elements. And so I think what Eden does is that. But what I saw last time is I actually saw more issues that came from letting humans run something that probably could be better organized and better automated. Like, for example, the fact that like it had to happen at a set time, where like it only works for really a third of the population of the world. So how can you have this global network where like people aren't awake, people aren't doing things? And I'm not being overtly critical. I'm just saying like this is something that the team itself recognized that needs to be fixed, right? So if we can get to a point,
though, like, isn't it like? Because I agree, but the thing that I've come back to many times over the last few weeks is the digital nation idea, right? Where you have 10,000 people in in one of these groups. There's a lot of people all over the place, right? So yeah, if you wanted another time zone, make one and go bootstrap it. That's right. And again, this is kind of what when we were talking about our little take over the world strategy, figure out a way to port this technology in a user-friendly way so that everybody can use it. And we would test that by duct taping it to world DAOs in the uplift, right? Like make it so that literally anybody can do it.
Yeah, I agree with that, and you can already do that with Eden, right? Like you can spin up a kind of a thing in any language, but okay. Kind of where I'm coming from the issue for me is like, do you really need to have all of these people on at the exact same time for round one? Like my thought was like, why can't everyone just do their initial pitch? You put them into groups, you give them like a set number of hours where they could all vote, and it's only the final rounds that like. That really need to be that, right?
Because
I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just
just like the amount of what's the actual amount of time, right? Because you get to 1,000 in 3 steps, right?
It depends how many are in each group, but so a couple of
right.
Things,
Well,
right?
I've been just thinking in tens, right? Which kind of makes sense to me, just as like an arbitrary.
Just to do the numbers.
Yeah, right. We've got 10 based math. This is rock and roll. Just count them here, baby. But yeah, like so that initial step, because again, it's about that networking thing, right? If people are just pitching it or whatever, like that entrance round, skipping over that, there might be a real cost in sort of the network stickiness to it.
Well, the reason why everyone has to be on a call at the same time is to prevent sock puppets. So it's to prevent somebody like, say myself, I want to take over Eden and game the system so I get the money. I want to get myself to the top. So I'm going to send a bunch of my buddies who are going to work for me. I'm going to pay them, and I'm going to get them into Eden. I'm going to, just like Corey, you're going to be my lemming, right? You're going to say everything.
Chill. Seriously.
But the problem is in order to, make a bunch of sock puppets and they're real people, but now we get randomized into groups, and those sock puppets may not end up with me in my group to vote for me. So they're going to be in their own groups, and they got to get themselves up so they can then vote for me when we do end up together. But in order for them to do that, they need to be actually able to talk and not just a sock puppet. They can't actually have some substance, right?
Yeah.
So if you do have sock puppets, then maybe I could, and you don't have this all occurring simultaneously, then I could like jump in and use like a face augmenter or wear some glasses and pretend to be these people, and so I can weasel my way in. So then I can vote for myself, essentially, right? But if you have it all at the same time, then everyone is forced to be there. You can't have sock puppets that are effective, essentially, because they got to actually speak for themselves. So that's why they have to kind of happen concurrently.
I get where this is going, and I'm not saying that I have the answer to it, but I do have some criticisms because, like, I've hung out with Corey long enough that I know that it's not fucking scalable. If we want this to become like a thing, like it's really not that scalable. And Corey has a good point. You can port over and you can do whatever you want, in your own time zone with your own people.
That's the point.
But however, right, if the organization is like, because we're in the trials now, right? But the actual, real Eden, I'm sorry, but like the actual real Eden, I believe you're a member of that as well. But I think like the actual real Eden is 100% holistically based in a US time zone right now.
for now. But it was never meant to be like that. It's always been described that eventually there'll be multiple Edens that have all equal power, and they're based on different jurisdictions and locations and languages. It was never meant to be just one.
Just where the where the network is starting, Jimmy.
That's
like
right.
Get off your ass and build one in Japan.
That's exactly right. This is just a start. It's just we haven't built the software yet. Like there's so much that this is just the bootstrap stage.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that because they would take time away from us, and that would make me sad. But like that's
my Japanese is shit. I'm just gonna move back to North America.
All right. Well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. No, I think that as an idea, it interestingly enough, this does scale. Because most people do not give a fuck at all, and never will. Like that. The sad thing is that the reason why we don't have proper self-governance is because people are too busy going to fucking Kmart to buy a slushie. They don't care. And that's going to be the case for 98% of people, for the rest of our lives.
This is what you guys said something earlier before we got into this, and you mentioned community and basically the importance of bringing the humanity back, right? And what are we even doing here? We have all these digital relationships, and we're losing. People don't give a fuck, like you said, don't care, I should swear. But like, we need to build back community. Like the whole point that I really like Eden is it's building this trust network, this trust layer where we're real people. Like I'm not using a pseudonym. I'm not anonymous on Eden. Like I am me, and I'm putting myself out there, and so are other people. And that's like a connection. That's kind of breaking away some of these digital barriers that have been put up. That blockchain is a trustless. We don't want to trust anybody. What kind of society is that where you don't trust anyone? Like who wants to, are we all just going to live on islands and be alone and elusive? Like I'm sure our controllers would appreciate that. So we don't get to talk to each other and form little bands and mutiny or whatever. Right. But this Eden is bringing back the community, and there's going to be multiple communities. Like we can't, like the whole Dunbar number of 150 people or whatever it is in a group, like it's 10,000 in Eden. But bottom line, like this is meant to be a bunch of small communities that are going to interact with each other. And it's like fractal in that nature, where it's not just one homogeneous thing. It's a bunch of groups that all sort of agree to a base set of rules, but they're real basic and just like don't hurt each other, all that, those good sort of libertarian values that hopefully can become pervasive. But this is meant to build community exactly like we want to have happen.
Well, and also, like this could eat the world. Like that's like when we first started talking about it, and I started to grok it a little bit. And again, like I think this takes time to percolate it. But if I could wave a magic wand and replace all of our current systems with this, I would probably do it. And that might be dumb, and just it would
worth
be
a shot.
Yeah, right. It would cause more damage than it would be worth to do it quickly. But over time, this is an idea that could and should infect the body politic to the point where like arbitrary drawings on maps based nations could very much give way to these digital nations in the same way that cell phones overtook landlines. Landlines still exist, but who fucking cares, right? Like that's how powerful this could be. But again, like it takes time. And again, like the people that most people aren't going to care, but it really only takes a decent amount of people to care, I guess. So maybe like creating an incentive structure around it, right? Like the reason why people aren't flocking to the system is that governance and talking to people is hard and annoying sometimes, fascinating, and luckily there's people like the Chris Barneses of the world who love digging into that stuff. Could there be a gamified way to tokenize this project and like basically just create the incentive? You'd need effectively like a game supply demand loop, so that there was you'd have to spend it to take part, and obviously you'd want to create another network where you have to create all sorts of demand for that token, otherwise it's pointless anyway. Like this is all stuff that we deal with in every token, but then instead of waiting around for a handout, you could create that economics of scale on your own.
The Eden process can be applicable to all sorts of things. So yes, there could absolutely be spin-offs that use the process, but then have some sort of gamification or token or local community, like a local municipality can use the system to vote for your mayor. A local school board can pick their student teacher reps. Like there's all sorts of, and how you incentivize that, it's going to be dependent on the application. Like the incentive to be a mayor is going to be different than the incentive to be the president of your high school. I mean, you could do this in high school. High schools could do this just to pick their student body instead of doing.
They should
right.
They
should. So
teaching a different way to do democracy.
That's right. Like, but people don't know what they don't know. So this idea has to get out there. And right now its only incarnation is on EOS. And so the incentivization to get people to join Eden on EOS is going to be when the money shows up. Let's be honest, right? Of the 170 people that are in Eden right now, there's been no money really there. So these are people who are there just because they like the idea, or maybe they think the promise of money is coming. But I think a lot of them just like the idea. And those are probably the right people to have there for now. Once there's a couple $1 million sitting in an Eden treasury, and then there's like the winner's going to get 12 grand a month or whatever it might, because the distribution of the funds is curtailed, and I can talk about that later. But
we should, and I'm very excited to hear that. That's good to know. Yeah.
It's going to be hard to rug pull. Like the idea that someone's just going to win an election and walk away with all the funds, that is going to be restricted based on smart contract. So that's part of what this Clarion team is building with Eden EOS, Eden OS software. That's what it's called. Is going to have a distribution mechanism that when you win so the election is all going to be on chain, and then the winners will be on chain, and then the distribution of funds will be on chain. All of that is controlled and restricted, and only 5% of the full Eden treasury is released per month to the various levels that will receive funding. So only 5% can disappear per month. So if something goes wrong, someone gets in there and they take their funds, they're only taking a fraction of 5% in a month that you would then be able to see, because it's all on chain. And they're like, oh, no, they're doing something wrong. Snap election, which you can do. And we get this guy out of there because he's bad. Chris Burns turned evil, and he's trying to take over the world with Corey. So, right.
I mean, evil. We would be,
benevolent
dictators.
Now,
probably.
Just to clarify, 97% of what's happened and what is happening, I'm on board with. I love the fact about having different regions that have their different governance. Like each high school could use it, each state could use it, each country could use it.
Yep.
My only issue with it, and I'm making popcorn out of corn here, right? Because I'm throwing heat under a fire that doesn't maybe exist yet. But my only issue is as a philosopher, looking at as old as we can get when it comes to politics, which is essentially Plato, I'm looking at how when money mixes, and then looking at all of the crap that came out of the EOS community for the last, I don't know what, 2 years about cartels that have been forming in Asia, with all the block producers and all of these voting things, right? So if everything is centralized in one time zone, and then we add that funding mechanism in, and then we get all of that funding into that one time zone, and we're not actually actively figuring out a way to allow all of these other people to be part of that funding. Now, if the funding is split 5 ways and it's split between 5 different continents, then that's a different story, right? So I'm not I'm just saying if we're going to build a global community here, right, and we're going to do that, there's ways around it. One of the ideas that I had, I think I brought this up on a past stream, is maybe we split it amongst continents or time zones, and then we have this DAC upon DAC verification
let it build itself. What if you're somebody in America, but you really, really want to be part of the one that's growing up in Japan? You don't need to put arbitrary rules on it. People will self-organize. That's kind of, to me, it seems like that's sort of the whole point, right? That.
I'm not worried about self-organization. What I'm worried about is having something that's time-centric, that's only that's controlled in a time-centric way to one time zone.
Don't control it.
It's
let
temporary.
People self-organize, right?
Who's in charge anyway? Who's in this control thing? Eden it's this elusive thing. Dan's in control, I suppose, but Dan isn't overly present, really. We've had mock elections. Myself, Ami, Felix, and Josh are the current trial board guys, and we're the ones who are sort of doing the work as far as this. What is Eden doing? And people are looking to us to sort of see what we're doing, even though we're unofficial. We're not even an official election, but we're still representatives. So, eventually there'll be official elections and official representatives, and they can sort of help push the idea that, okay, let's fund a trial election in Korea now, so they can start building their network. And then they will do the same thing in for Spanish speakers, and we'll do the same thing for Chinese speakers. And so the intention, for as far as I can tell, again, who's in charge, but even Dan has said this, it'll be multiple Eden communities. We should all, maybe it's representative by the number of participants that you get your percentage of the funding that's available. And Eve himself said in Telegram that the foundation will fund Eden's plural. So already the intention is that there'll be multiple Edens, exactly like you're saying, Jimmy, in multiple time zones, multiple languages, and ideally they'll all be funded equally. Like there's no reason why one is superior over the other. The point is, as long as these Edens are directing funds in a way that is beneficial for the EOS ecosystem, and that's demonstrable, then they're deserving of funds. And that's all Eden is really meant to do on EOS, right? Is that we're just supposed to take funds and do good things for the ecosystem. And if that's, as long as we're doing that and you can demonstrate it, then game on, keep going. But
and if that's
going to be other languages.
That's great, right? Like, and if that's where we're headed, it's great. I'm just like,
that's where we're headed.
Like, and I'm a little bit bitter because I stayed up until 3:30 in the morning. For this process, one person in our group didn't show up. One person in our group didn't speak English, and it was just like for me, I was just like, okay, this needs to get better, right? So I just got my brain like kind of pumping, like how does this work? Like what happens, right? Like you saw the aftermath of that. You're like, oh, Jimmy won, but like you didn't win because you didn't freaking record it. Like what happened, right? So it's just like I'm excited for it to be automated. Is all I'm saying. I think that we do have a long way to go, right? And
So do you want to hear about some of the automations then to help make your life easier next time?
Yeah,
I mentioned some of them, but so Brandon Fancher did an update. It's on YouTube. Maybe we can put it in the notes later, but he actually showed some of the UI from what they're building, and you will have your web app when you for your member portal now, right? Like both you guys, you have your, when you did your profile and you have like your NFT and you've got like this like access that you sign into on your phone or whatever. And that's like the Eden membership portal. Through there, when there's an election, you're going to get notification. You can opt in to an election. You don't have to worry about opting out. You just opt in if you're going to participate. There's no more fee anymore for an election. It's just going to be free. You opt in. If you don't opt in, you just don't participate. So you opt in. It's known well in advance. Like it'll be planned 6 months in advance. You'll know when the next election's coming. Plenty of time to prepare and book it off or whatever. You opt in, and then on the election day, the system itself will divide everyone up, and you'll see the Zoom link on your, and you'll see who you're teamed up with on your app. So if the Zoom doesn't work, you can all all your telegrams are there. You hopefully can ping each other. Hey, it's not working. You set up a Google Meets or whatever, or Microsoft Teams or whatever. You can still do your video. It doesn't have to be Zoom, but whatever, you can use Zoom. It's there. There's a button. You click it. You all go into the Zoom. So then you're doing your thing. You can also then vote on the app, and you can see everyone who's in your room, and you can see who currently is in the lead in terms of consensus. They're going to have like a consensometer, it's called, where it shows how the votes are going. And do you indeed have consensus? You can change your votes throughout the 50-minute call. There's a timer that's there that tells you when you're running out of time, because that was another thing. And here's the other thing that you missed. So now say someone drops. Say you got 4 people in your room. You need 3 of 4 to vote to move someone forward. Say 2 of those people drop off. One doesn't show up. One drops because the internet is bad for them, right? Also, now you only have 2 people. Well, 2 people isn't enough to get consensus when you had 4. So what they've now coded in is that if you can have a majority vote amongst who's ever left, it will then just assign those who left the vote so that the person can move forward. So say the 2 of you that are left in that room vote for one person to move forward. It'll automatically assign the 2 people that jumped for whatever reason to that person, so at least they can still move forward. So it kind of covers a lot of these edge cases where, what if internet's bad? What if if someone doesn't speak the language, that's hard to, but that's just a byproduct because we only have this one Eden and people are excited and they want to participate even though they don't speak great English. That's okay. Great for them for trying. It was a trial election. But eventually they're going to start their own in their own language, hopefully, and it'll be bootstrapped, and then they'll fraction off, and you can be a part of only one Eden. You can't do multiples, and there'll be multiple Edens, all hopefully talking to each other even through a translator and being effective.
And I can say that probably solves about 85% of all the problems that I had in that experience. And exactly. I'm not negative about it. Like I looked at the experience, but like most of those things that you're talking about happened to me. Most of those bad things.
You were like a great test case for how the shit can go wrong.
And I wasn't bitter. I wasn't pissed, right? Like I was kind of happy.
It's frustrating.
I wasn't even that frustrated. It's just like, well, if nobody wants to go through, like somebody said, oh, well, if you could go through if you want. I'm like, well, number one, we didn't record it, and number two, it's like my wife works tomorrow in like 3 hours, and I got to get up with my daughter. And it's like, well, if it's not that important to you, it's like, dude, it's okay. I'm done. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to me, but
It's nice that you
but-
tried. I think it's cool you tried, dude. And you know what? That's
Yeah.
important. And you got to see kind of what it's about and how the conversations go. And the videos are there. Anybody like watching the stream, you can go. Mark Shear, awesome dude. He's put all these up on his YouTube, and you can watch any of the ones that were recorded on Unaccepted Videos, which I tried to find. I wanted to see Jimmy's, and it was gone.
The only problem that it doesn't solve, which I think would be interesting, is if all the rooms automatically recorded your video. I think like if they could build that into the app sometime, if people could consent to that, because like one of the issues was like our group, nobody wanted to go forward, but then we're just like, oh, it's kind of a shame. Somebody good should go forward. Okay, fuck it, maybe I'll go forward. But then like there was no video, so you can't do it, right? But like I said, like 85% of the problems that you just outlined, like fixes a lot of my
most
issues,
of them are
right?
fixed.
Like, so
And the video recording, I don't know if that can be automated per se. Like maybe the Zoom can auto record as soon as it opens, but it's got to pick a location. So someone who's in there has to pick to record, so it shows up on either their cloud or on their device. But I don't know about auto recording, but that's an easy one just to be like, hey guys, make sure someone at least records this. You never know, and that maybe solves it. But like you say, 85% of the stuff are solved. It's being automated, and then the treasury itself, like the voting is all on chain now. And there's going to be a nice like way to data mine this and see who voted for who, and if there is any issues of collusion or sock puppetry, well, you can maybe look at their voting record, and you can and see who invited who, because that's also all on chain. You can see who invited and vouched for each particular member. So there's a lot of data there.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So we're gonna have to continue this conversation because Corey and we have a meeting that we have to go to. But lucky for us, you're actually going to come back the beginning of September. I think the first Monday, and you'll be back on the show the 1st of September, so we can get an update on all of this kind of stuff that's happening.
Well, hopefully by then the MSIG, we're 9 out of 15 right now for the actual MSIG that's been proposed to turn on the inflation. And so part of the inflation is just going to go to the EOS savings account. It doesn't go to the foundation, but the foundation did request, I think, about 3.4 million EOS from the EOS names and Ramfee account. So that's what's up for grabs right now in terms of this MSIG that we hope happens this week.
All right, guys. Chris Barnes, I fucking love you, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
And thanks for the redirect too. I mean, that at the end of the day, anything that has people constantly being negative instead of building something is a huge, huge red flag, right? Like whatever negative thoughts are recurring in your head all the time that's keeping you from building something really cool, smash them with a giant fucking hammer.
Yeah. Well, you're only hurting yourself. I mean, it's like
exactly.
being mad at somebody. That just poisons you. It doesn't hurt them. It's just hurting yourself.
It's so true. I lost so many years of my life to that. It's better to be on the other side of it. I'm telling you. Let's rock and roll. All right, Jimmy, we got to run. Good job, motherfucker.